How significant is this killing?
It's significant. I think what President Biden is saying, take the win. And this time there's more of an opportunity for Netanyahu to take it because this was an offensive win, unlike in April, where the president said to Netanyahu, take the win when they successfully defended themselves against an Iranian assault. Ever since October 7th, Netanyahu, look, it's been very political for him, but it's also very personal. He released Yihya Sinwar, Hamas's leader, in a prisoner exchange for a kidnapped Israeli soldier over a decade ago. And I think he felt personally that he'd been sucker punched. So today we saw the counter punch. And, when the score is even, Netanyahu is going full eye for an eye. There's a chance that we might be even.
Do you see any, discrepancy between what's coming out of the United States, where Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are saying, look, this is an opportunity to end the war, and then Benjamin Netanyahu is saying the task before us is not yet complete?
Well, I think they are working kind of hand in hand. I mean, the other significant event that happened today was B-2 bombers from the United States bombed 5 underground weapons facilities by the Houthis in Yemen. And that was a not too subtle message to Iran to say, this is what we're capable of. And if this escalates, it's not going to go your way. So, there has been some tension. I often think it's sort of like in real estate, it's location, location. The Israelis are an 11-minute golf cart ride away from the tunnels of Gaza. And the United States here, sitting here in Washington, we're an 11-hour flight from Kabul. So I do think that, there aren't always the same exact approach, but I think there is agreement on the problem. And the problem is radical, hostile Iran that is bent on destroying Israel. It isn't a matter of borders, it's a matter of elimination of the state.
There's been a bit more frustration than that, though, hasn't there? You seem to just say, oh, it's just a small kind of difference of opinion because of geography. I mean, it feels to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels to me that there's been a deep frustration from the United States about many of Israel's actions.
Well, I agree with you. The United States and Israel might agree on the goal, but from the very beginning, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said, how you fight this matters, how you do this matters. And it's an issue of morality for the United States and human rights, which is important. The Israelis say we don't have the luxury for that. And that goes back for decades. I mean, you think of Prime Minister Golda Meir in the 70s when she said, look, I'd rather have a bad headline than a good eulogy. So I guess it's sort of an existential struggle for Israelis. And, they say that you can't always make nice in this really tough neighborhood. And yes, that has been a source of tension between the United States and Israel.
Do you think that we might look at this moment and think, this was the beginning of the end of the war? Or is that a bit naive, given, like you say, the kind of existential struggle that Israel feels it's in now?
Right. I'd like to hope so. I mean, Netanyahu said today is the beginning of the day after, and wow, wouldn't we all like to believe that? The problem is there still is an account open with Iran. Israelis are, bracing for the counterstrike that will come after they launch their strike, which is expected. 200 ballistic missiles were launched at Israel on October 1st, and so there are accounts open. I do think once, though, that this is over, this is a kind of very kinetic month. We're in October. Today you could call an October surprise. There's an opportunity to de-escalate, but I don't see that. Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, was quoting the book of Leviticus, saying our enemies will fall by the sword. So they still feel like they have capabilities in Hezbollah that they have to deal with. Hamas is degraded, but not defeated. Rockets are still flying over Tel Aviv. So we're not there yet, but with some creative diplomacy, there's an opportunity now to get closer, especially if the hostages are released. It's just the most important linchpin, and that's why America's been so focused on it.
Do you see any glimmer of hope when it comes to the release of the hostages?
Well, I think it's interesting. If you listen to the hostage families, they'll say themselves, the death of Sinwar means nothing to us, and the lives of the hostages mean everything. So Netanyahu was calling directly on the Palestinians of Gaza, saying, lay down your arms, release the hostages, and you will go free. You will have free passage out of Gaza if you want. You will not be held, responsible. You will not die. I mean, because right now they're up against, Israel's formidable military machine. In the last Zagami public opinion poll in Gaza, Hamas had a 7% approval rating. So, I don't think Netanyahu is the right face for the public diplomacy to be saying to Iran, which he has been to Iranians, overthrow the grand ayatollahs of who are oppressing you, or frankly, in Lebanon, they're calling on the Lebanese to overthrow Hezbollah. And now he's turning to Gaza. It's kind of an odd messenger, but it's a reasonable message.
Can I ask you about the US election, which is fast approaching? Look, we obviously don't know the result of that. Things are very, very close. It looks genuinely too close to call. But we could have two very different presidents taking over from November. What kind of impact do you think that could have on the situation in the Middle East?
It's a great question because in some sense, although Harris and Trump couldn't be more different, they do agree on one thing, which is that they don't want this war to continue on their watch. Trump says, quote, I'm quoting him, get your victory and quit the killing. And Harris has said many times just, about the sort of unconscionable killing of civilians in Gaza and now moving on toward to Lebanon. So I think both of them are interested in this being over before they take over. And I think that's why what you're seeing is a kind of escalation by Israel in this kind of free-for-all period. In basketball terms, you might call it buzzer beater shots. Just before game over, you kind of throw your longest baskets. And the best, most optimistic, I guess, view would be that's what Netanyahu is doing. He's trying to just kind of even the score, call it a win, and then go back to what Israel's actually better at, which is building rather than blowing up. It's just a travesty what's happened over the last year.
Yeah, it is. Like you say, it's just been the amount of death. It's just the most awful thing to be witnessing, even though we're so far away from it. It's just absolutely devastating. Can you sorry?
No, I was just going to say that, look, Sinwar was the playwright. He wrote this script. He called it the Al-Aqsa flood. And he called it a flood because he wanted all the proxies of Iran to join in and join this fight. So the playwright is now dead. Does that mean the curtain drops on the stage and everybody can kind of go back to their lives? I mean, that is the hope. And that is what Netanyahu is aiming for, to see if he can take advantage of the kind of chaos now that's certainly carrying out in Gaza among the Hamas leadership and bring this horrible chapter to an end.
You call Yihya Sinwar there the playwright, which is a very kind of evocative phrase. Can you just explain his significance?
Well, yeah, look, he wrote the script and it's kind of a horrible thing to say, but he spent his years, he was jailed, I believe it was in 1982, and he spent or maybe it was 92. I don't want to misspeak, but he spent 20 years in Israeli prison. And he used to say that he understood Israeli psychology, the language, even better than many Israelis. And he exploited Israelis' weaknesses, including the fact that they will go to the ends of the earth to liberate hostages. That's one of their core values because it's a small society and there's this kind of emphasis on every person is responsible for his brother or sister. So he understood the value of hostage taking, and he's exploited that. That's why when people ask, who will replace Sinwar as head of Hamas, there are many willing replacements, but I'm not sure there's somebody who has the kind of emotional evil genius that Sinwar had. That'll be really hard to replace.
Thank you very much. It's been fascinating talking to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.